Malaysia secured a decisive victory in its challenge against a multi-billion-dollar territorial claim over the state of Sabah in Malaysian Borneo, after a Paris court ruled the arbitrator involved in granting the award had wrongly upheld their jurisdiction. The ruling by the French Court of Appeal questioned the jurisdiction of Spanish arbitrator Gustavo Stampa, who ordered last year's eye-watering payout. The Malaysian government says a new ruling by a French court could overturn a $15 billion arbitration award handed to Filipino heirs of the 19th century Sulu Sultanate. A French arbitration court in February last year ordered the Malaysian government to pay $15 billion to 8 self-declared descendants of the defunct Sulu Sultanate, who claimed losses after Malaysia stopped paying an annual stipend in the aftermath of a deadly incursion in Sabah by another group of claimants of the Sultanate. The Paris Court of Appeal, however, ruled on Tuesday that the arbitration court had no jurisdiction over the case. The judgment also implied that the Paris Court of Appeal will annul the $15 billion award handed down earlier. Malaysia's winning legal battle in French Court of Appeals is likely to lead to the annulment of an award of nearly $15 billion over territorial claims over what is now the state of Sabah on the island of Borneo. As part of efforts to enforce the award, the Filipino claimants had previously tried to seize 3 properties owned by the Malaysian government in Paris as well as assets of the Malaysian state oil firm Petronas in Luxembourg and the Netherlands. Malaysian government described the latest ruling as final and binding, and said it was a decisive victory in Malaysia's ongoing pursuit of legal remedies, which Malaysia is confident will result in comprehensive defeat for the claimants and their funders. The French decision appears to have brought to an end the strange legal case involving 8 Philippine citizens who claim to be the legal descendants of Jamaalul Kiram II, the last Sultan of Sulu, who once ruled over large parts of what are now the southern Philippines and eastern Malaysia. The claimants said they would consider their options before the French Supreme Court. The court only signifies the validity of the jurisdiction of the arbitration court but does not conclude the legality of the claims. Last Tuesday's court decision had to do with technicalities around the appointment of the Spanish arbitrator Gustavo Stampa, who delivered the multi-billion-dollar award to the Sulu heirs last year. The French judges upheld Malaysia's challenge against a partial award made by Stampa on May 25, 2020, during which he dismissed Malaysia's objections against the arbitration proceeding and ruled that he had the jurisdiction to arbitrate the Sulu claimants' case in Madrid. The partial award was subsequently nullified by the Spanish High Court of Justice in June 2021, when it ruled that Malaysia had not been properly served ahead of Stampa's appointment in 2019. In September, however, Stampa took the seemingly unusual step of transferring the arbitration proceeding to Paris, where he would go on to render the final award. A French arbitration court in February ordered Malaysia to pay the sum to the descendants of the last Sultan of Sulu to settle a dispute over a colonial-era land deal. The claimants last February 2023 moved to seize worth $2 billion of 2 Luxembourg-based units of Malaysian state oil firm Petronas as part of efforts to enforce the award. The Petronas Azerbaijan and Petronas South Caucasus units were first seized in July 2022. But the Malaysian government obtained a stay order to temporarily set aside the court decision made by a Luxembourg district court. On the last week of February 2023, Luxembourg court bailiffs issued a second seizure order on the units and related bank accounts, according to the court documents shared by the heirs' lawyer. However, on June 6, 2023, the France Court of Appeal made the judgment and ruled that the arbitration court that ordered Malaysia to make the payment to 8 self-claimed heirs of the defunct Sulu Sultanate did not have jurisdiction to rule in the case. The dispute stems from a deal signed in 1878 between 2 European colonists and the Sultan of Sulu for the use of his territory in present-day Malaysia. An agreement that independent Malaysia honored until 2013 and paid the monarch's descendants a token sum annually. Kuala Lumpur stopped the payments after a bloody incursion by supporters of the former Sultanate who wanted to reclaim eastern Sabah from Malaysia. The heirs say they were not involved in the incursion and sought arbitration over the suspension of payments. When understanding the long territorial disputes of Sabah, between the federal government of Malaysia and the Philippines, presenting itself as the successor state of the Sultanate of Sulu and how the arbitrary award worth $15 billion was awarded to the heirs of the Sultanate, we must go back to its history and its geographical location. Sabah is located on the northern portion of the island of Borneo, in Southeast Asia. In the present day, Sabah is one of the 13 states together with its 3 federal territories that compose the Federation of Malaysia. Going back to the 15th century, the settlement currently known as Sabah had become part of the empire of the Sultanate of Brunei, during the reign of the 5th Sultan known as Bolkiah. In 1658, the Sultan of Brunei ceded the northern and eastern portion of Borneo to the Sultanate of Sulu in compensation for the latter's help in settling the Brunei Civil War in the Brunei Sultanate. In 1761, Alexander Dalrymple, an officer of the British East India Company, concluded an agreement with the Sultan of Sulu to allow him to set up a trading post in the region. It was been formalized in 1878, when William Cowie, on behalf of Dent's Company, negotiated and obtained a concession in perpetuity from the Sultan of Sulu over its holdings in this region. This concession was signed on the 22nd of January 1878 in the palace of the Sultan of Sulu. The rights were subsequently transferred to Alfred Dent, who on the 26th of August 1881 formed the British North Borneo Provisional Association Limited. A few months after, the British government granted a royal charter, and the British North Borneo Chartered Company was subsequently formed on the 1st of November. In 1888, North Borneo became a protectorate of the United Kingdom. Administration and control over North Borneo remained in the hands of the company despite being a protectorate, and they effectively ruled until 1942. During the Second World War, as part of the continuous expansion of the Empire of Japan, the North Borneo island including Sabah was occupied by the Japanese from 1942 to 1945. In 1945, after the liberation from Japanese occupation, North Borneo was administered by the British military administration and became a British Crown colony until mid-1946. After the Philippines' independence from the United States on July 4, 1946, 7 British-controlled islands on the northern coast of Borneo named Turtle Islands, including Cagayan de Tawi-Tawi and Mongsi Islands, were ceded to the Philippine government by the Crown Colony Government of North Borneo. But Sabah still remained part of the British Crown Colony until August 31, 1963, when North Borneo attained self-government from the British Empire. Between 1961 to mid-1963, during the transition of the liberation of Sabah, the Cobbled Commission was set up to determine whether the people of Sabah and Sarawak favored the proposed union. The Commission had found that the union was generally favored by the residents, but also noted some opposition from the people, but decided that such opposition was minor. Despite the opposition, the Commission made the recommendation without any referendum conducted, unlike the referendum conducted in Singapore. As reported by the Commission, ethnic community leaders of Sabah would eventually support the formation. Despite some opposition, an agreement was signed, and William Good, the last governor of North Borneo, signed on behalf of the territory on the 1st of August 1962, putting to paper the agreement to form the union. Initially, the unification of Sabah to Malaysia was scheduled on August 31, 1963, but due to objections from the Philippines and Indonesia, the formation had to be postponed to the 16th of September 1963. At that time, North Borneo, currently known as Sabah, was united with Malaya, Sarawak, and Singapore to form Malaysia. On the 12th of September 1962, during President Diosdado Macapagal's administration, the Philippine government claimed the territory of North Borneo, and the full sovereignty, title, and dominion over it were ceded by the heirs of the Sultan of Sulu, Muhammad Ismail Ikiram I, to the Republic of the Philippines. By then, the Philippines continue this territorial claim over North Borneo. Based on an agreement, signed in 1878 between the Sultan of Sulu and the North Borneo Chartered Company. It maintains the position that the sovereignty of the Sultanate over the territory was not abolished, and that North Borneo was only leased to the North Borneo Chartered Company. However, Malaysia considers this dispute as a non-issue, as it interprets the 1878 agreement as that of cession, and it deems that the residents of Sabah had exercised their right to self-determination when they joined to form the Malaysian Federation in 1963. So, who is the real owner of Sabah? Apparently, Sabah is technically part of the federal state of Malaysia currently, when North Borneo was incorporated into the Federation in 1963. But in the future, the thing seems uncertain. Currently, the arbitrary battle is between the heirs of the Sultan, a private Filipino citizen, and the Malaysian government. The Philippine government could step up and represent the heirs of the Sultanate of Sulu as the successor of North Borneo. While the Philippines government sought to distance itself from a controversy between next-door neighbor Malaysia and the heirs of a sultanate who were trying to seize international assets of Kuala Lumpur's state-owned oil company in a land dispute going back to the 18th century. The claim by the descendants of the Sultan of Sulu is in the nature of a private claim between two private parties and does not involve the government of either Malaysia or the Philippines. Therefore, it is not an issue of sovereignty or of territory at the moment. But the real question is, was the incorporation of Sabah into the Malaysian Federation is legal and binding? Based on the 1878 treaty between the Sultanate of Sulu and the British Empire. Or the 1878 concession treaty has a legal basis in the present day's international law system? Either way, both countries must respect any authorized arbitrary proceeding issued by the International Court and be able to create a diplomatic concession for a peaceful resolution of the issue.